And you won't reproach me for these rude words, sometime, afterwards? She suddenly asked. How can you, how can you? And why have you blushed again? And again you have this dark look. You sometimes have this dark look, Aglaya, which you never had before. I know why. Be quiet, be quiet. No, it's better to say it. I've long wanted to say it, I already have, but it wasn't enough, because you didn't believe me. Between us a certain being still stands. Quiet, 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 quiet. Aglaya suddenly interrupted, seizing him firmly by the hand and looking at him in all but horror. At that moment someone called her, as if glad of it, she left him and ran off. The prince was in a fever all night. Strangely, for several nights in a row he had been in a fever. This time, in half delirium, the thought came to him, what if he should have a fit tomorrow in front of everybody? Had he not had fits in a waking state? The thought petrified him. All night he imagined himself in some odd and unheard of company, among some strange people. The main thing was that he started talking. He knew that he should not be talking, yet he talked all the time, trying to convince them of something. Yevgeny Pavlovich and Hippolyte were also among the guests and seemed to be on extremely friendly terms. He woke up past 8 o'clock with a headache, with disordered thoughts, with strange impressions. For some reason he wanted terribly to see Rogozhin, to see him and talk a great deal with him, about what he did not know himself. Then he became fully resolved to go for some reason to see Hippolyte. There was something vague in his heart, so much so that the adventures that befell him that morning made an impression on him which, while extremely strong, was still somehow incomplete. One of those adventures was a visit from Lebedev. Lebedev appeared quite early, just after 9, and almost completely drunk. Though the prince had not been observant of late, it had somehow struck his eye that, ever since General Ivolgin moved out of his house 3 days ago, Lebedev had begun to behave very badly. He had suddenly become somehow very dirty and greasy, his necktie was all askew, and the collar of his frock coat was torn. At home he even raged, and it could be heard across the little yard. Vera had come once in tears and told him something about it. Having appeared now, he began speaking very strangely, beating his breast and confessing something. I got my requital for my treason and my meanness. I got a slap in the face. He finally concluded tragically. A slap in the face? From whom? And at such an early hour? Early? Lebedev smiled sarcastically. Time means nothing here, even for a physical requital, but I got a moral slap, not a physical one. He suddenly sat down unceremoniously and began telling the story. It was very incoherent. The prince frowned and wanted to leave, but suddenly a few words struck him. He was struck dumb with astonishment. Mr. Lebedev had strange things to tell. To begin with, the matter apparently had to do with some letter. The name of Aglaya Ivanovna was spoken. Then suddenly Lebedev started bitterly accusing the prince himself. It was clear that he had been offended by the prince. First, he said, the prince had honored him with his trust in dealing with a certain personage, Nastasia Philippovna, but then had broken with him completely and driven him away in disgrace, and even to such an offensive degree that last time he was supposed to have rudely dismissed his innocent question about imminent changes in the house. With drunken tears Lebedev confessed that after that he could no longer endure, the less so as he knew a great deal, a very great deal, both from Rogozhin and from Nastasia Philippovna, and from Nastasia Philippovna's friend, and from Varvara Ardalionovna, herself, sir, and even from Aglaya Ivanovna herself, if you can imagine, sir, through Vera, sir, through my beloved daughter Vera, my only begotten 29, yes, sir, though not my only begotten, for I have 3. And who informed Lizaveta Prokofyevna by letters, and that in the deepest secret, sir, hey. Who reported to her on all the relations and on the movements of the personage Nastasia Philippovna, hey. Who is this anonymous person, may I ask? Can it be you? Cried the prince. Precisely, the drunkard replied with dignity, and it was today at 8:30, only half an hour, no, already 3/4 of an hour ago, that I notified the noblest of mothers that I had an adventure to tell her of an important one. I sent her a note, by a maid, at the back door, sir. She received it. You've just seen Lizaveta Prokofyevna? The prince asked, scarcely believing his ears. I just saw her and got a slap in the face, a moral one. She gave me back my letter, even flung it at me, unopened, and threw me out on my ear, though only morally, not physically, though almost physically even, just short of it. What letter did she fling at you unopened? Didn't I? Hey, hey, hey. So I haven't told you yet. And I thought I had. There's this little letter I received, to be passed on, sir. From whom? To whom? But certain of Lebedev's explanations were extremely difficult to make out and even partially understand. The prince nevertheless realized, as far as he could, that the letter had been given to Vera Lebedev early in the morning, through a maid, to be delivered to the address, the same as before, to a certain personage and from the same person, sir, for one of them I designate by the name of person, sir, and the other only as personage, for humiliation and for distinction, for there is a great difference between the innocent and highly noble daughter of a general and a kept woman, sir, and so, the letter was from a person, sir, beginning with the letter A. How can it be? To Nastasia Philipovna?